Yes, it is time to get started. We got a funny topic here. Okay, let's be honest. It's not funny. This is really getting into the core of what we really need to talk about. Okay? But give me 1 second because I think that I found out we had some issues before with our. So we're going to change that. All right? So now, hopefully, what I realized, because I did watch my other videos, I watched myself because I want to know how I can get better, right? Because again, we are showing up as the best version of ourselves, and to do that, that means we have to take a look at ourselves, right? Take a look at me. Not about what others see, but about what I see going on with myself. Because to be honest, people, and I'm always honest, we can be the worst critic of ourselves. That is the fact. Simple, plain fact. We are the worst critic of ourselves. Now, were we built that way? Is that the way that we were intended to be built on this planet? Right? I mean, I don't know, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? I really don't. I don't know, to be honest, if we were created to be harsh critics of ourselves, because who knows, right? Where can I find that information out? I could take a look in the Bible if I believe the Bible is the, reasons by which we were put here, which, okay, I do. Okay, let's go ahead and put it out there. Let's throw it out there right now. I do. I do believe that. Okay. But even in my believing that, I just know my own nature, right? I know, I pay attention to human nature. These are things that I do. No cap. I look at human nature a lot. And then more recently, I've started paying attention to myself, meaning, why am I thinking about this? What about me is making me be this way or do this thing or whatever, right? And if I look back at some of the times that I've had challenges in my life, I've really looked at myself, right? I had a 3 days before I ended up with the burns, right? Because I got burns here, I got burns on my face and all that. But 3 days before that, I had looked at myself and I asked God, why? You know what I'm saying? Why? Why do I act this way? Why did I do the things that I did at that time? And so basically, that was me looking inside to find out why. Now, understand, when this happened, I think if I'm not mistaken, I was somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, maybe? You know what I'm saying? Possibly. So it's been a little bit of while that I have been looking at myself and really paying attention to why I'm thinking and doing some of the things that I've been doing. Okay. At this point, though, the reason why I said that, me looking at my stream, looking at my other videos that I've put out for you guys and talking through things with you guys, when I look at those and revisit those, what I saw was, man, this is some dope content. I ain't even trying to do that because it's mine. I'm looking at the content. I'm looking at what was said, and if I didn't know me, would this content still help? Right? Would this content still be something that I could look at and be like, oh wow, like, is this something that I didn't understand? Is this something I could grow from? Is this something that is good enough for me to continue to watch, right? Or even support and find value. Okay. That's what I was looking at. And so in doing that though, I looked at the video last night. Okay. I looked at the one that I did on Friday, which was overloaded. Right. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I have a whole spreadsheet, and I might have said this on another stream, but I have a whole spreadsheet with all my videos, with all the titles and everything, right? And so if I pull this up for you guys, hold on, I'm gonna pull it up so that way you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, just so you know, when I say things, I'm telling the truth. Okay, so here we go. And I'm not gonna go to the dictionary, so let's go straight to the desktop. Boom. Okay, so if you look on the desktop, you see these are all the titles of all the videos that I've done thus far, right? All the titles when it comes to even the shorts, right? Because the shorts are a breakdown of the bigger one, right? I'm pulling certain topics out of the longer form content and giving them short, so that way you guys can get empowered even if you just catch a short. Okay, because that's my whole goal, is to empower you to be the best version of yourself. And so when you show up in situations, you can actually show up the way that you would be proud of yourself. Okay, and not in a way that you're like full of pride, right, or ego, but you can say, I made the best decision, I showed up the best way I could, I acted responsibly, right, and I handled the situation as best I could. Okay, with that being said though, so if you look at all these titles, the last video I did would have been, oh, that's crazy, where is it at? Standards, okay, and these are the dates, and so the latest date should be March. Bam. Okay, your environment inside your life. Nope, that's not the last one, which is wild, because standards is here, right? This is the standard stuff. Okay, but and then I see boundaries, but it should be somewhere in this neighborhood, but these dates are out of order, and I don't get why they're out of order. So there's that. And if today's the 23rd, and that means Friday would have been the 20th. So that does have to be right. Leave to grow. After that, boom, this is it right here. Bam. That is the video. So your to-do list is a tool, not your, that's not the name of it, but there it is right there. Boom. Okay. Why your to-do list is killing your vision. Overloaded live stream. Okay. So this is the actual video that we did on Friday. Now, why am I saying that? Why is that important, Rich? That's important because, let me go back. That's important that you know that that's the last video, because where we're going now will help, right? Because everything stacks on itself. So as we're stacking this stuff, you're going to be able to look at what we've already done, and you can probably predict what we'll be talking about next, to be honest. But that's only if you're really paying attention to the growth that you're having, right? Because if you're growing while I'm growing, and everybody else that's attached to this is growing, right? All the people in the chat, they're growing too. Now, because we're all growing, we're going to start to vibe together. You're going to start to know, oh, I know he's going to be talking about this coming soon, so I'm going to watch out for that video. You're going to be able to feel it. But even though we know that, and even though we can see that coming, the whole point is what I initially was talking about on this when I started, which is talking about this whole thing of looking into yourself. Okay, so here we go. If you looked at the title of this video, right, it's probably underneath down here somewhere, but if you look at the title, we're calling this How to Trust Yourself. Dun dun dun. That, you know, I wish I had the dun 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 sound effect. I'm gonna get that soon. Anyway, but if you're looking into yourself, the question though is really trying to find out, well, do you trust yourself? Right? Do you trust yourself? And so what we know is that I feel like people don't really have like a problem with talent. Okay? People don't really have a problem with opportunity. Though some people do. There are times I feel like you can have a problem with opportunity, with having opportunity show up in your life. But if you have talent, a lot of times your gift will make room for you, right? If you have a talent in doing anything, that talent will make room for you. Meaning, people will see that talent and say, "Oh yeah, I need that. I want you to be on my team. You're good at this. I need that done for me," or whatever. Meaning, it'll open up doors for you that you didn't have to go search out because somebody saw the talent that you have, right? If your talent doesn't necessarily shine bright enough, or you don't expose your talent to the world, therein lies the problem. I don't know if you can tell where we're going, but I think we've reached the top of the hill, the crest, if you will. We're about to crest this hill, and it's all downhill from here, buddy. But not downhill in a bad way. Downhill meaning momentum. So if you aren't showing your talent to the world, meaning you're not putting it out on social media, you're not going to local events and stuff, or you're not connecting with people who do the things that you do, then you're not really exposing the world to your talent. Why is that? Well, I don't have an opportunity to do it. I don't know. If that's what you say, my answer to that is I don't know if that could be true. I don't know if that's true because there's too many opportunities. There's too many open doors. There's too many ways in which you can expose the world to your talent. Too many ways at this point, right? And so because there's so many ways, the question isn't because to be honest, that part right there would be an excuse. Why? Because the real issue that I'm hearing, if I know you have a talent and you say that you don't have any opportunity, then the switch here is the fact that you must not trust yourself. Okay? I'm saying this in the form of communicating with you, chat, but I'm also saying in the form of me because I have talents. I have a lot of them. Okay? There are a lot of things that I can do. I know that. My family knows that. My parents know that. My brother knows that. Everybody knows that. People who don't even know me much know that I have a ton of talents. Okay? I'm saying this because I'm exposing myself, right? Like I'm being vulnerable in these conversations, to be honest. So when you come on here, you're going to get vulnerability. Know that, okay? I know a lot of times when I was looking at myself in the video, I'm like, why do I keep looking around? But then I'm thinking about it. Well, I got my notes on one screen. I got my screen looking at me on the other screen. I got the chat looking at me on this screen. And then, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff going on that I'm looking around at. So please don't judge me for looking around. I got a lot going on these monitors, okay? Because I want to make sure that I'm covering all the things that I need to cover. And also, I'm paying attention to you guys. When you jump in the chat, you say something, I need to keep an eye on that because I definitely want to respond to you, okay? That's why I always say in the notification, if you're following me and you get the notification when I go live, you'll see the fact that I'm saying the chat is open, right? And because I'm saying the chat is open, that's the reason why I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to let it just ride out there and nothing get said, because that's not me. I invite you to come, join, communicate. Let's have a dialogue. Let's go back and forth but stay on topic. Look at the rules when you go to chat. Rules will pop up. So when you see those rules, know full well that this is what I go by, okay? These are the rules I go by and how I manage my chat, okay? AKA moderate. This is how I moderate my chat. Now, back to the topic. I said that you must have a self-trust problem, right? Or it is a self-trust problem. Now, because it's a self-trust problem, that's why I'm having this stream. Now, what made me get to the point of being able to think this is a topic that we need to cover? Because when I look at my video topics and I think about the things we discussed, I even remember before, we did talk about identity, right? We talked about identity. When we were talking about identity, we were talking about that your identity is based on evidence, right? Evidence that of consistently doing certain things, which make up when people say, oh, that's Rich, he's this. Oh, that's Rich, he can do this, right? They're using those things to form an identity for other people to know who I am. That means they're probably going to look at things like my talent, because my talent is something that I'm going to do repetitively. I'm going to do consistently, right? Because I can't help it. It's my talent. This is what I do, right? So if my talent is to rap, if my talent is to sing, if my talent is to dance, if my talent is to play basketball, if it's football, doesn't matter what the talent is. The fact of the matter is, when you're good at it, people are going to they're going to refer to that when they try to identify you to someone else, okay? Which makes up your AKA identity. But self-trust is a piece of that, right? Let's ask some questions. How about that? Let's ask some questions. Here's question number 1. Can you trust yourself to do what your life requires, right? Because if we're talking about identity and the evidence of the things that you do consistently make up your identity, then we have to get into the fact of, well, do you trust yourself to do the things that it takes for you to get to the point that someone would say, this is them, this is what they do, right? Because I think that a lot of people don't trust their talent. They don't trust that they're good at it. They may be great at it, but because they don't know that in comparison to what the world thinks is the standard, they don't think they're good at it. Case in point, let's say I take a lot of pictures, okay? And I do. And when I say that, I'm talking about professionally, like with a camera, right? I do take a lot of pictures and I am pretty good at it, right? But would I say that I take pictures like the ones that can go up, in museums type pictures? I probably could. But do I put myself out there as being that? I probably don't. So the question is, do I trust my talent? Do I trust myself? Is this making sense? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's making sense personally. But of course, I can only judge it because I'm the person talking. It's on you, Chad. You got to tell me if it's making sense. W's in the chat. Here we go. We're going to ask the next question, okay? Next question. Because we're talking about this whole self-trust problem, quote unquote problem. It won't be a problem when we finish, but right now it might be a problem. Because for me, in this moment, it is a problem. If you talk about the photography thing, right? If you talk about some of the other things that I do, maybe not so much. It just depends, right? Because you can have self-trust, but you still can have a piece or an area in your life that you don't trust yourself in that. Okay? So, question number 2. Deuce, 1, 2, 1, 2. Can you trust yourself to follow through when it gets hard? Because let's say I know I can rap and I know I'm dope at it. Okay? Let's make that the premise. I can rap. I know I'm dope at it, right? I've rapped against other people and shown my skills. Okay? I've rapped against other people. I've shown my skills, and you know what I'm saying? I'm real quick to pop my collar. You know what I'm saying? Pull my hair back. You know what I'm saying? and I'm hitting on all cylinders when I start rapping. Okay? But when we get to question 2, but can I trust myself to follow through when it gets hard? So what does that mean? That means that I might be rapping or battling somebody else. Somebody else is smashing. They may start round 1, they killing. You know what I'm saying? They rapping hard, tearing it down. And now I got to come on and rap behind that. Do I trust myself that I can get up there and still stay on point, even though at this point I feel like maybe my rapping ain't that great? You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, we talking transparency here, people. Who's better to judge you but you? Right? So can you trust yourself to still show up when it gets hard? Now, I'm using the example of your talent, your skills, the things that you may do. But you can even think about this internally, right? Because all of this affects how you choose to show up in the world, right? And I say choose on purpose. Next one, here we go. Can you trust your own decisions? Right? Because if we're talking about identity, we're talking about consistency, we're talking about what your life requires of you to get to the identity that you want to show up as. And then we're coupling that with, well, if I can show up that way, can I do it when it gets hard? Can I still show up when it's hard? And then I said, the way that you choose, can you show up the way that you choose to show up, right? Because that is a decision. What you choose is a decision. It's a choice that you're making based on a decision to say, here's how I'm going to show up. So can you trust even the decision you made to make that change? Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. It gets deep. It gets deep. Because we're talking about yourself. We're talking about self-trust, right? Self-trust, meaning I have to be able to trust myself through the whole process, right? But, okay, so I'm using the word, and this is something that we don't normally do, but I'm using a word, which is self-trust, and I'm using it in a way I have not yet defined, even though I'm using it this way because I feel like it's very clear. I feel like this definition of this word is very clear what it is. There's no other way to take it, right? Self, meaning you, me, myself, right? Trust. Well, okay, maybe we do need to figure out what trust is, because then we have to break down what is self-trust. All right, you know what we're going to do. You know what time it is? It's time to go to the dictionary, right? We just got to do it. You know how we do on this channel, and we're gonna do it. Here we go. Let's go to the dictionary. Bow. All right. So we're talking self-trust, right? Self-trust. Bow, 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 bow. Now, pride. It's saying self-trust is pride. I don't know. Okay, that's wild. Let's see. Keep going. Uh-oh. The rest of my page hasn't loaded yet. What's going on? Moving kind of slow, people. Moving kind of slow. Let's refresh the page. Let's see if we can get something going. Hold on. What is that? Maybe I need to go to a different dictionary page. Let's go to dictionary again. All right, now let's type in self-trust. Right, boom. All right, self-trust, pride. Let's see if it shows up. It looks like it keeps going to the thesaurus though. Self-regard. That's better. To me, that's better. That's more like what I would consider self-trust, because I guess if you trust yourself too much, it can get into pride. but I don't know how self-trust is pride. I don't know. Okay. So if I go down and we had self-regard, and then we go to, okay, so then let's back up. Let's define trust, right? Trust. Let's define trust. No, definitions. Trust. Oh, was that there on the other one? Let's go back. Hold on. Let's see. We were at self-trust, right? Self-trust. Oh, yeah, no dictionary over there. Okay, so cool. That's fine. All right, let's go to trust. Trust. American. Here we go. Reliance on the integrity, strength, ability, surety, etc. of a person or thing. Confidence. Right? Confidence. All right? Confident expectation of something. Hope. Right? Confidence in the certainty of future payment for property or goods received. Credit. Okay. A person on whom or thing on which one relies. Right? I could make that right there synonymous with the usage of self-trust. Right? Is that making sense? Self-trust. A person, yourself, whom, on which one relies. Right? The condition of one to whom something has been entrusted. Yourself, your talent. Right? Come on, your decisions. Right? The obligation or responsibility imposed on a person in whom confidence or authority is placed. Right? A position of trust. You need to put yourself into a position of trust. Right? Charge, custody, or care. Something committed or entrusted to one's care for use or safekeeping. Come on. Come on. I think that seems clear to me. Seems clear to me. Right? A person on whom one relies. We're talking about self-trust. So that's you relying on you and having confidence that the decisions you make are going to be the best decision for you. Self-trust, right? And self-trust is not just believing in yourself, right? It's believing in the actions that will back up your words, right? That's why people say, well, matter of fact, on this channel, when I say things like, well, you know how we do, we're going to look it up, right? That is something that you can trust in. It's not the fact of believing what I'm saying, it's believing the action that we're going to look up those words. The words that I'm using, we're going to look them up. Why are we going to look them up? So we can have a level playing field. Remember, we say this a lot. We have a level playing field. So when a word is used, you and I both know why we're using that word and what that word means in the context in which we're going to use it. Right? So we're trusting that we're going to look up words that seem like, okay, I just want to get more clarity, right? With that being said, though, we look at this whole thing about believing that your actions will back up your words. So if I tell somebody, hey, if you do that, right, like you have your kids and you tell them, if you don't come home from school before the street lights come on, if you don't get home before the street lights come on, we're going to have a problem, right? Or you're going to be grounded, or you're going to be on punishment, whatever the words are, right? Do you trust yourself to back up those words? If I tell a client that, I'm gonna make this logo, or I'm gonna make this graphic, or I'm gonna do whatever it is that I told that client I was gonna do, based on my talent, my skill, my work ethic, my, all of that kind of stuff. If I tell someone I'm going to do something, can I believe me when I do it? Right? Here's what I'll say about that. Because I believe that defines how much you're willing to charge for the services in which you render. This is a revelation, people. This is a revelation, people. Like, y'all should know by now, I think of things very logically. Like, I think through things very logically. In my thinking through this, I'm starting to see that if I can trust myself to show up as the person I said I would, and I'm able to follow through when it gets hard, right? If I trust that I can follow through when it gets hard, meaning continue to show up, right? If I say I'm going to show up as a person of peace, and then we get into a hard situation, and I don't show up as a person of peace, I show up as a person of war, then now I can't trust myself to be a person of peace, and which means going forward, I probably won't be a person of peace. Because I said I would show up that way, but nobody's going to believe it because I didn't, right? Which means that now I've even hurt my own trust in myself that I'm a person of peace. Basically meaning I can't trust my own words. I can't back up my own words. I can't stand on the decision I made to be this way, right? So the only way that you can see, though, that you have self-trust is by the proof. The proof that you did what you said you would do. You meant what you said, right? If I tell somebody when I see you, it's on sight, right? When I see you, it's on sight. When I see them, it better be on sight. Because if it ain't on sight, then I can't stand on the words that I use. I can't back up my actions. I'm just talking at that point, which basically means that I don't have no confidence in what I'm saying, and neither does anybody else have any confidence in what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And it's not about puffing up your chest, acting like, oh, I'm all this and that. No, it's just the fact that if you ended up having to say something about something, then keep the word that you said. Or else you'll stop believing you'll stop believing in your own self. And that is a bad place to get to when you cannot believe in yourself. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to believe in yourself. And the only way you can do that is to back up the words that you say, to follow through on the things you say you're going to do, to keep moving forward when you say you're going to move forward. Show up the way that you say you're going to show up. That's the only way you're going to get self-trust, because in that, yes, that makes up your identity, but the identity is not even the thing that you should worry about at this moment, even though we talked about it in the past, right? And a matter of fact, I'm going to connect the dots in a second, but we talked about it in the past, but right now, we're talking about you. We're talking about me. We're talking about ourselves, right? Because this is self-trust, not others' trust, self-trust. So if it's self-trust, then that means that I have to be able to trust myself. How can I trust myself if every time I show up, I don't do what I say I'm going to do? If I tell somebody that it's on site, it better be on site. Here's what made me think of this. I was watching a reaction video to a movie that I'd already seen. What movie did I see? Casino. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen Casino. Casino is a great movie. I think it came out like 95. But Casino is a great movie. If you watch Casino, It's one of the greatest movies, actually, probably ever. I think it's definitely one of the top movies that has ever, gangster movies, definitely, right? Mafia movies, but it is a great movie. Now, here was the thing. Joe Pesci played, what was his name? Vinny? I think his name was Vinny in that. No, because that's My Cousin Vinny when he played My Cousin Vinny in another movie. His name in this one was, man, if you remember, tell me in the chat. Dang, I know y'all probably screaming at me right now. I can't remember his name in that movie. Nicky. His name was Nicky. Got it. So Nicky, played by Joe Pesci in that movie, remember what he said? That he said, I'm gonna smush your head like a grapefruit if you don't give me a name. He said, give me a name. Give me a name. You gonna make me squish your head like a grapefruit. He still didn't give him a name. He kept tightening the C-clamp, right? He kept tightening the vise. Why? Because he said he would. He said he was going to smush his head like a grape if you don't give him a name. And so finally, he got to the point that he tightened it so tight that it popped his eye out. I know that's a little graphic for you people. I'm not trying to get graphic, but it's just a story. Anyway, pop! And what happened? He gave him the name, right? But the dude in the vice didn't believe him. Obviously he didn't, because he would have gave the name sooner if you knew who Nicky was. But because he didn't know who Nicky was, he didn't know that he was a man of what he said he would do. He didn't, I guess he didn't realize that, but he found out that day because his eye is not in his face anymore, right? So it's the thing to be able to stand on what you said. If you said it, stand on it. That's what you're going to do, right? What that does to create self-trust is make you have to pay attention to every word that you use. When I say something, I'm gonna think about what I'm saying before, because when I say it, I'm gonna have to stand on it. Right? Every word. That will literally help you with self-control. Right now, we're just talking about the trust aspect. We might do self-control soon, but right now we're talking about self-trust. Right? And so if we connect all the dots with the things we've talked about so far, here's how it goes. And I do this pretty regularly, so it might not be every video, but it's maybe every, 2-3 videos or so. I'll go through some of the high points of the items that we talked about, just so you can see how all of these dots connect. Because the fact of the matter is, if we're doing this, everything has to connect. Why? Because you connect. Everything we're talking about is pieces of you. It's pieces of you becoming the best version of yourself. That is the point of the channel, right? So here we go. We started out beginning of the year, right? January 2026, put it on your calendar. Matter of fact, back it up to your calendar and you'll see it if you can see the videos. But those videos, earlier videos, we didn't put on YouTube. So that was when I first started streaming at the end of December. I wasn't really putting stuff on YouTube like that. As I was doing the streams, I would just stream them, and then I didn't realize that they deleted after 7 days. So that's the reason why anything before January didn't actually get put on the YouTube, okay? But I started streaming December 22nd. So you won't see, you might see some clips from those earlier videos, but it won't be a full video, okay? My bad. Charge it to my heart, not my head. Nope, charge it to my head, not my heart. Charge it to my heart, not my head. I keep saying it backwards. Charge it to my head, not my heart. Okay? Because I want y'all to have the content. If I have to revisit those earlier videos, I will. But I think based on where we are now in the grand scheme, you could probably understand what we talked about. I may need to do one though, especially the first one. But here's how it goes. The first video, and again, remember I got my list over here, right? I got my list of all the videos that I did. You talked about goal setting, right? I know that to be true, We talked about goal setting. There's no reason for you not to believe me. Based on the evidence of all the videos that I've done so far, you could tell that I probably did talk about that topic, right? So goal setting was the first one. We came behind that, talked about planning, right? All of that kind of stuff. We ended up going into discipline, right? Now, this isn't directly in order, but this is definitely the flow. We talked about discipline, right? Doing what you say, right? Because that is discipline. And so remember, this is connecting dots. This isn't like a linear line, right? Even though in some ways it can be. It's more like a web, right? Like a spider web where you have points all around. And we have to connect the dots with you in the center, right? You know what I may do? I may make a web document. Or if you see this video in the chat or whatever, and you could feel like that you could take all my videos and make a good web, that would be great, because I feel like we need that. I feel like we need that as a community. The connections, what connects to what, even though everything is connecting to you, right? You're in the center, right? I'm in the center of my own web. You're in the center of your own web. In that center, it connects out to all of these pieces that we've talked about thus far. Okay, so if we talked about goal setting, and then we went behind that, we talked about planning, right? All of those are some of the core things that you need to do to even, for any of this rest of this stuff to matter. Because none of this stuff matters if you don't have a goal, if you're not planning for that goal. None of this other stuff we talked about matters. And I've said that before. But if we go to the next thing, we talked about discipline, right? Doing what you said that you would do. Right? Because discipline means I'm going to do it even if I don't feel like it, because motivation is not as good as discipline. Motivation is feelings. Discipline is a choice. Discipline is a decision. You choose to be disciplined. You choose to keep doing the thing even when you don't feel like it. Right? Then we talked about identity. Right? Why did we do that? We did that in that order because repeated evidence of you being disciplined makes up what people choose to say who you are, right? It's evidence-based. Identity is evidence-based. So it's repeated evidence that they can say that's your identity. That's who you are. Okay. We even talked about focus, right? Focus means to stay on the path. Focus means basically staying always headed towards your goal, right? Keeping something in your focus and making everything out of focus that's around it, because none of that other stuff matters. What matters is what you're focused on. Okay. Then we talked about boundaries, right? Basically boundaries, saying no, right? We talked about a boundary more so protects you, right? It's a barrier that you put in between you and stuff that are going to get you out of focus, right? Stuff that you don't want for the standard that you have in your life, because that was the next video talking about standards, right? Because you only get what you refuse to tolerate. If I don't tolerate that, I won't get that. That's the standard I set within my boundary, right? A standard. The things that I let in is my standard, right? Let into what though? My next video, environment. The things that you let in that shapes your behavior, because the 5 people around you all the time is how you can tell even who you are, right? That's your environment. That's your sphere of influence. Those are the things that shapes your behavior, that shapes your decision making, that shapes your, the way that you are, right? The things that you let into your environment. So then if we come behind that and we started talking about overload, right? How your to-do list ends up causing you overload because you're putting all this stuff on your to-do list. You have all these things to do, but you don't have a plan for how to get them done. And it's basically making you live in a reactive state, right? And not a proactive state, right? Only thing, you're spending your life reacting to things versus purposefully walking out your day, right? All of this stuff connects, right? We even talked about the gap that exists between words and actions, We had a whole thing about that, talking about the action, the gap that's between your words and your actions. That's essentially follow through, right? You said that you were going to do something, you got to act on that, right? But in between that, what's in that word action gap? What is in there? What's in there is negative self-talk. What's in there is renegotiating with yourself about the initial thing that you said. That's what's in that word action gap. The time between what you said and when you acted on it or didn't act on it, right? And so if you think about all those topics, right? Think about all those topics. What do you get? What do you get? Put it in the chat. Like, what does it make you think of? Because all of that leads up to one thing. It leads up to one thing. Can I trust me? Because all of that is based on you. It's you. Are you willing to say what you want? Are you willing to do the things that you said to get to the things that you want? Are you willing to do it repeatedly? Are you willing to only look at the goal and not those other things that are trying to come into focus, right? That are vying for your attention? Are you willing to say no to things that get you out of alignment with the vision, with your goal, right? Are you willing to make standards on things that you're willing to tolerate? Are you willing to leave your current environment based on what makes you up now and grow to a new environment of who you're becoming? Right? Can I trust me? Am I willing to not let the chaos, everybody else's emergencies, me having to react to everything every day, run my life? Right? Am I willing to just do the thing I say? Stand on business? Am I willing to do that? Right? So it all comes to the question of, can I trust me? Is it, if I do not trust me, then I will hesitate or second guess, delay, or even abandon the goal that I had planned, the goal that I had said, the steps that I was going to take to get there, right? Because I don't trust myself, right? Because if self-trust is low or non-existent, then every decision is just harder to make. So you know how some people say, you know, what is it? What do they say? You don't make, not you don't make good decisions. It's like you're what do they say when you don't, not procrastinate to make decisions? It's another word. I can't think of the word. Jump in the chat, y'all. Let me know what that word is. But it's basically like when you take a long time to make a decision, right? People might call it decision paralysis, right? Or you're not inconsistent. It's like indecisive. There you go. Indecisive. That's right. Indecisive. So you're indecisive in your decision making. A lot of that is because you don't trust what you want. You don't trust what you say you want to do. You don't trust that the decision you make is going to be a good decision, right? Now, I have another reason for something being seeming indecisive. I have another reason that could be, but right now we're only talking about self-trust, so I'm not going to get into that other part. Maybe I'll have another video about that, right? Why it seems that you are indecisive. Because I don't think people are. But you can be seen as indecisive by others if you have low self-trust, right? Because if you keep like doubting yourself, why? Right? Like if you don't have self-trust, then that means you do have self-doubt. And if you have self-doubt, then the question becomes, why? Why do you have self-doubt? Why don't you trust yourself? And I think that if you don't trust yourself, it's because you've seen yourself quit before. Right? If you don't have self-trust, it's probably because there's been a number of things you've probably quit on decisions that you knew that you really, really wanted, and you quit before you got there. You just didn't get there all the way. And I'm not saying because of anybody else's anything, right? But it was just you feeling like, you know what, maybe that wasn't the right decision. Let me do something different, right? And the thing about it is, you never know how close you were at the time that you quit. And if I'm not saying that for you, I'm saying that for me. And that can play into the fact of whether you trust yourself or not. Because like I said, it's not, self-trust is not just one. It's not just either you do or you don't. That's not how I see it. I see self-trust as it depends on the thing. So like if I may be able to trust myself in I'm a great driver, but I might not be able to trust myself in I can take a magazine cover level photos, right? I'm just using these as examples, people. I'm not saying that all these are facts. I'm saying that this could be, right? I could say that I'm a dope driver. I'm really good at driving. I'm jumping in the car. I'm driving anywhere. I'm always the best driver, right? But why? Because I've never driven somewhere and then quit. I've never driven somewhere and then, had to be like, oh man, I can't do this, man. You do it. Or, oh, I'm scared when I get behind the wheels, right? So if that's not the case, then I have I have a lot of confidence in the fact if I can drive, but I might not have as much confidence in, like I said, making photos that are magazine ready, or making or shooting movies, right? For either for TV or for like Netflix or Hulu or whatever else, right? I might not have, because I don't have the examples, right? The past behaviors haven't been of that. Why? Because I've never put it out there to do so. It's not that I don't have opportunity, because that's what I was saying about opportunity earlier, that you can make your own opportunity. But the only way you're going to make your opportunity is if you can trust yourself that you'll follow through. And so why don't we make our own opportunity? Why don't we make our own table, if you will, right? We don't make our own table because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust that we can do the thing. So if we don't trust that we can do the thing, how can you make the table? You're not even going to go buy the wood to build it, because you don't believe that you can do it. You may know all it takes to do it, but if you don't actually put action behind the words of doing it, then you don't trust yourself to do it, right? And a lot of times we'll say, oh well, I need this too. Oh, I need this other thing. Oh, I need more of that. I need more of this, right? Now it's one thing to try. No, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave that there. Because I'm about to go off on that. But if I sum that one up, I'll sum it up like this, right? Like, there are a lot of people, to have self-trust, they need some sort of outside reassurance. They need someone else to say that they can do it, right? Versus them trusting what they're able to do. And again, that's what goes into the fact of you pricing your services like that. If you're a business owner or wanting to start a business, a lot of times your price is going to say how much you believe that you can do the job. The way that you conduct yourself when you start talking about that money situation is literally, how do you believe that you can do the job? Do you believe what your value is to do that job? Even if you don't know what the current pricing is around the world, what would you charge for it? Right? Now, it's one thing if you start undercharging yourself. Well, at first you don't know what the pricing is, right? I would tell you to do some research, but let's say you don't know what the pricing is and you say that based on how I do things, I know that I can charge this price because it can take me X amount of time. And what I know that I need to get for my overhead is to be charging this much an hour. And so this type of project takes me, let's say, 4 hours. So that means I need X amount of dollars for that 4 hours worth of time that it's going to take me to do it. So that's my price. Okay, cool. You got it a good way. Now, once you do that, you do a couple of those services or whatever, you start finding out whatever the hardships are, whatever. And then you go and you say, you know what does everybody else charge for this? If there's other people in that area, what do other people charge for that? You go look up those prices. And when you find out, or you give them a call or whatever, right? And you're like, hey, I wanted to get this done. And I want to know, how much would you charge me to do that? And they tell you some prices like 8 times more than yours. That's what they charge, base rate. And then they got add-ons on top of that. And you're like, what? And I've been doing that for this? You know what I'm saying? Say you make videos, right? Say you make videos. And let's say you charge somebody for a YouTube video that's like 5 minutes long, 5 to 10 minutes. Let's say you say 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to charge them $500. Right? For a 5 to 10 minute video, I'm gonna charge $500. That's $5. That's $100 a minute, right? Because that might take me, 10 hours to make. Okay, 10 hours to make, and charge $500. That means I'm getting paid $50 an hour for 10 hours. Pretty good pay. Okay, but then when you find out that you charge them $500, but somebody else out there that ends up making a worse video than you would have did. You can make better videos than they do, but they're charging $2,500 for that video, for that 5 to 10 minute video. They charge $2,500, and when that video comes out, that video is worse. And when I say worse, I'm saying it definitely is not as good as what you know that you could do. That hurts. That hurts. And the client went and paid that $25. And you was only going to charge them $500. A lot of times clients will look at the price and say, why the price so much different? If this is so low, then they probably going to give me cheap service. Even though the person who is charging more is actually playing them because they're charging this high price and the service is worse than if you'd have paid the $500. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that everybody's that way, but I am saying that a lot of times that's how clients are making judgments. They're making judgments based on the fact that if your price is too low, you must not know what you're doing. Right? Because that means you don't trust yourself. It plays into it. I'm telling you right now, it plays into it. That's why you got to find out what is the average pricing for whatever that service is in your area. And charge it. You know you can do the job. Even if it scares you, you still know your tools. You know what you do. You know how to do it the best you can. Charge appropriately for it. And let them know if you have any issues, something needs, correcting or whatever, just give me a call. I'll make sure I get it right. Boom, boom, boom. But I'm not going to make another video. But we will update this one in a way that makes it correct for what you're trying to get across. That's good enough. Because imagine, now you got paid $2,500 instead of $500. You only worked 10 hours, which ended up making, what, $250 an hour? I'm saying. That's 5 times more. So this is why I'm saying self-trust means a lot. Self-trust is a lot on how well you are going to be able to even support yourself. Because it starts off, do you even trust yourself? That's I don't think I can tell you how important this is. Right? So let's talk about for a second, how do people lose self-trust? Because I believe that when you were a kid, when I was a kid, a child, I had a lot of self-trust, right? I had a lot of self-trust. I'm pretty sure you did too, right? What did that look like? That looked like you in school and the teacher says draw a picture of a whatever, and you went and drew that picture, showed it to the class, so excited. You went and took it home and you showed it to your parents and your brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff, and you was like, look at my cow, look at the picture of my son and the family. Look, this is everybody in the family, right? You made these pictures, you drew these pictures when you were a kid with a crayon with stick figures, right? And you were so proud of your picture, right? And then what happened? Your brother, your older brother, your older sister, your cousin, somebody else on the bus on the way home, right? In some cases, it might even been your parents. They were like, oh, this don't look like us. Or, oh, that's no good. What are you even making? You can't even draw, right? They hit you with these things that hurt your heart, that beat down your self-trust. Because you believed that you was good. You thought you could do it. And the thing about it is, you could. Nobody told you, nobody set the limit that it had to look like it needed to be put up in the Louvre. Nobody put that stipulation on your drawing. They told you to draw something. You drew something. You did it. But now you don't trust yourself because other people are saying that you're no good. Right? So that's one huge way. That's your environment, right? That has then taken control of your life, right? Because people do not lose self-trust in one moment. It's not just one, though. It's over patterns. It's consistently. People are beating you down, or you're beating yourself down with self-judgment, right? How does that happen? Because you start making promises to yourself and then you don't keep them, right? You say you're going to do something and then you renegotiate with yourself, or you change the standard that you set. You set a standard and then you change it. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's one thing to compromise. It's another thing to change it, right? It's another thing to renegotiate that standard. Especially if it's one that you made when you were really, really sitting there thinking it out, thinking what you really want to see in your life, what the growth aspect looks like, right? I do feel like there's times where you might need to revisit it. Maybe that's something that you set up every 90 days or so. But in that first 90 days that you set it up, don't change it until you get to the time that you said that you're going to revisit it. That's the standard. Right? So you set a standard and you keep that standard until the time that you decided that you're going to go back and revisit that. Right? Also, what also can break self-trust is when you say yes when you really should have said no. When you meant to say no, you still said yes. Self-trust gone. I told you it's pattern. It's patterns. Right? You end up avoiding hard things when you already know they need to be done. That breaks your self-trust. It makes you not be the best version of yourself. Right? Because now you're avoiding the work. You're avoiding the things that you have to do to show up as the person that you said you wanted to. Right? Anytime that you live reactive instead of from intention, breaks your self-trust. Because you're walking around just reacting to everything and you're not being able to put a plan together and walk the plan out. I'm just reacting. This is coming up. Oh, let me handle that. Oh, this is coming up. Oh, let me handle that. Instead of saying, at this time I'm doing this. At that time I'm doing that. At this time I'm doing this. Oh, something's coming up. Okay, I can do it if it fits between this time and this time. I can do it if it's between this time and this time. That's intentionality. You've planned your day, right? Or you end up letting fear make the choice for you. Or indecision. That's even worse. I don't know. I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter, right? At that point, your self-trust is gone. At that point, your self-trust is gone. So how do we fix it, right? How do we fix it? Any ideas? Let me tell you how I think we can fix it. Before we do that, I'm going to tell you about the movie. Okay, so I watched a movie. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Y'all might have seen it already. But the movie was called BlackBerry. Right? It was the movie about how BlackBerry started. Basically the rise and fall. Maybe it was like the rise or fall of BlackBerry or something like that. It wasn't a documentary, but it was like a reenactment kind of like. But it wasn't like in the form of a documentary. It was more of a movie, right? That they kind of played it, like acted it out, if you will, right? So if you go on, I think it was on, was I watching on Netflix? Is that Netflix? Might have been Hulu. I don't know. It was one of those streaming services. Look it up. But yeah, I was watching that movie, and this really, really pushed this topic, right, of self-trust. And it was wow, because when I watched that movie, you have the guy who is a founder. Okay. At this point, I don't remember his name, but you have the founder guy and you have the other guy that's a founder. And I remember his name. His name is Doug, right? So you had the main founder and you had Doug. Doug was like his sidekick. Okay. And a lot of times Doug would speak for the founder. And the founder, I'm calling him the founder because I don't remember his name right now. I wish I could remember his name. If it comes up to me, then I'll tell you. But the founder ended up not. He was very. I don't want to say he was passive, but he kind of was. He kind of was passive. They showed that he was on an article in the movie, and it said that the boy genius quits. That's what it said. It said the boy genius quits. That was the article in the headline of a newspaper. So basically, he was very, very smart, and he knew all about like mechanics and stuff like that, right? Like I think he was like an engineer or something, but he was the original person who came up with a BlackBerry, came up with what the BlackBerry phone was, okay? But again, this headline, I think, was looming in the back of his brain. You know what I'm saying? The fact that the boy genius quit because he dropped out of college. I guess to start Research in Motion, which is the company that owned BlackBerry, right? That built BlackBerry. And so the friend Doug used to talk for him a lot. When they were in business meetings and stuff like that, he was like, you don't mean that, no, he don't mean that, or he does mean this, or this is what he means, this is what he thinks. And the founder wouldn't really say nothing. Once somebody said what he meant, then he would agree with that. Right? So to me, that was a perfect picture of a person who is very, very talented, but doesn't have self-trust. Right? Now, when it said that he quit, I think it was talking about he quit college. But he was still like one of the best engineers like in Canada. Okay? At the time. Now, he ends up doing a deal and I'm not going to tell everything, but I'm just telling the beginning, right? Like he ends up doing a deal with another company who was supposed that Research in Motion was supposed to make the modems for the computers. Now, back in the day, we had modems. Modems was when you had dial-up internet, right? And so you would plug in the modem in your phone line. Your computer would call to the internet through that modem into the phone line, and that's how you would be able to get on the internet. Well, they started out building those. Okay, so they had their design, they made the modem, blah blah blah. They had somebody who ordered $16 million worth of modems, right? That was what it was valued at. And so then they basically stuck them and didn't want to pay for them. They got the modem. They got like a couple samples of the modems. I think they just took the modem and then reverse engineered them and then had them themselves without buying the ones that they built. Right? Basically, the good old copyright infringement. But because the founder didn't have any self-trust or confidence, whenever he had conversation with them, they would just steamroll him, right? They'd be like, oh yeah, we're not, either they weren't taking his call or they wouldn't. They finally came down to the point that said they're not gonna pay. They're not paying for those, right? No, we don't want your. They even called their modems defective. They was like, your modems are defective. And he was like, no, our modems, they're our modems, all this other kind of stuff. He definitely didn't have no confidence. He had no self-trust or anything. And so then, he goes to this meeting with another company because what they were trying to do was get them to buy the design for iPhone. Not for iPhone, for BlackBerry. But at the time, it was called a terminal phone or something like that. Something phone. But the dude blew him off too in the meeting. Didn't really, think about their idea or whatever. But even though it was interesting, he understood that they didn't know what they were doing, or they didn't even understand how to sell their own product. And so he kind of blew him off and went to another meeting. That dude ends up getting fired in that other meeting. Then comes back and wants to meet with them because he likes the idea of the phone. And so he's trying to find out, hey, what it would look like if I come work for y'all. And I'll buy into the company, but I'm gonna, end up, but make me the CEO. They went back and forth about it, but it comes out that dude was very high to the point of ego in his self-trust, right? So if you split it up, it's like the founder represents vision, creativity, and instinct. He just doing things based on the fact that he likes good stuff. He doesn't want it built in China. He wants it built in Canada because he said Chinese stuff wasn't built good, is what he said in the movie. And so, he wanted nothing but, Canada made stuff and all this kind of stuff, right? And then the other guy, the second, not Doug, the other founder, but the CEO, because he bought in and he became the CEO with the founder. So now they were co-CEOs, but the co-CEO, he was like force, right? He forced things to go through, right? Hard pressure. He pressured everything. He was always about execution, right? And above anything, he was about control, right? And so when he was putting pressure on the founder really didn't trust themselves because he realized how put together he was, how he trusted himself so much that he was willing to run over everybody. They even said that he was a shark, right? This was Doug and the founder. They said he was a shark. And they said, well, you need sharks because everybody else was treating them as prey. So they needed a shark to take the reins, to be able to get stuff done. That story outlines exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because they had to bring on somebody else who had the self-trust, who had the confidence about not only themselves, but about the product in which they were delivering, that, and the new co-CEO could trust that he knew what he was talking about because he knew he was a genius. And he knew that the other guy, Doug, wasn't really about nothing, and they really didn't need him because all he kept doing was speaking for the founder, and the founder couldn't actually use his own voice. He could talk, but I'm saying when I say use his own voice, meaning make decisions, command a room, and say this is what needs to be done. The issue comes in is that it got to a point that he ended up becoming more like him, but more like him, where he was so hard, so raw, like trying to get stuff done. But that was after iPhone came into play. So when he thought he was going to lose his level of what BlackBerry had become, now he lost himself so much that he now has to try to get it back. And that gave him confidence that he believed that his product was the best when he saw something else that was actually better, and he was not willing to make a change to be able to surpass that one. Okay? But, and also, when he went to build a new thing to try to surpass Apple, all he did was abandon how his greatness was. Like what made him great. What made him great was when they built the BlackBerry originally, they did not use China. They built it in Canada, right? But the one that was supposed to outdo the iPhone ended up being built in China, which then, as soon as he got the first version of it, it was making static and stuff, and that's what he didn't like. So how can you sell a product that was built in a way that you don't believe, and you don't like, even though he did it just so he could try to get the market before Apple did? All of this stuff plays to your self-confidence. All of this plays to the fact of whether you trust yourself, right? Do I trust what I'm selling? Do I trust what I have? Do I trust who I am? Do I trust my decisions? Do I trust, all of these things that you're doing, all these things that you built, right? Because even thinking about that story, like, I feel like sometimes success doesn't, like, it doesn't destroy you, but it does aid in losing yourself, because you end up having to become somebody else when you become successful. Your standards change, your identity changes, the way that you have to operate just for the sheer fact that you're successful makes you have to modify yourself. But that doesn't mean you have to lose yourself. And it looked as if that's what happened in that movie, right? He lost himself. The original founder lost himself. The other guy was so bold that he started doing illegal stuff. The code CEO who came in, who was all ego driven, go, he ended up getting the company looked at by the SEC because he was hiring people and backdating stock options and things like that to try to get them the value they needed to be able to come on board. Right? That's overconfidence. That's ego. That's pride. That's why I said that when we looked at the definition earlier. I'm like, that's pride. Pride? What? Why pride? But that's why. Because if you have too much confidence in yourself, then that's all ego. All ego. Because you can end up, not even paying attention to the fact that, now you're doing illegal stuff. You know what I'm saying? You went too far. All you're trying to do is make your words match your actions. You're trying to make your standards match your choices. You're trying to make your goals match your habits. You're trying to make your values match your decisions. Right? What helps you trust yourself is when your life keeps confirming your intentions. Right? Because that's the evidence. If I'm going to change, if I say I'm going to change, if I'm going to do something different, if I'm going to become a certain thing, then the more that I'm changing, the more times that I'm doing things that show me and others that I'm that, means that now I can trust myself more in that area. Right? Because I have to rebuild it. If I don't have it, then I have to rebuild it. Not create hype and say, oh, I'm this, and I just keep hyping myself up to be it. No, I got to prove it. You know what I'm saying? I got to prove it. It has to be proven by evidence. And I'm saying that was the same thing when we talked about identity. It's based on evidence. Well, how do you think it's any different for you? It's the same thing for you. You still got to believe it. The only way you believe anything is by evidence. Right? So how are we going to do that? How are we going to rebuild self-trust if we lost it? If we can't, trust our own decision making, if we, can't stand up when it gets hard, right? If we have to trust ourselves again, what does that look like? Maybe one of the first things that we can do is make smaller promises. This to me reminds me of when we start talking about the whole identity, right? Meaning change in slow phases, right? Change one thing, walk it out a little bit, and then change something differently, right? Meaning make it smaller, make the decision smaller, and then stay with it. That's how I became vegan. Vegan was a hard lifestyle to change. Like that was huge, right? But how did we do it? We did it based on changing one thing first. So first thing we did was take out everything white, right? No potatoes, no sugar. Even though that's not vegan, we did that first because that was the quickest way to bring back health into our life, right? The quickest way to get back to a healthy state is to cut the sugars, cut the, anything white, which is basically carbs, cut all that out. Immediately your health will start to get better. Okay? Once we were able to do that, then we could trust ourselves that we could do the next thing, which was cut out red meat. Right? By that time, we had already cut out pork. But this is when the decisions started getting compressed. So I'm saying that if you make the smaller decisions, then it makes it easier to stand up, right? It makes it easier to do them consistently. And when someone asks you, hey, you want some of this red meat? Hey, you want some of these potato chips? Hey, you want some of this? You can say, no, I'm good. Appreciate it. Right? Because it's only one item. Right? If it's sugar, okay, no, I don't want no soda. Can I just get some water? Makes it easy. It's one item. It's not everything, it's one. Which means you can still hang out with your people. You can still do the things you were doing. Just cut one thing. Or add one thing. Right? But the whole key is so that way you can do them consistently. Right? And then, remember I told you we have to watch our words because we're going to do what we say we're going to do. So that means that I can't overcommit. I can't say that I'm going to do way more than I'm willing to do. Or than I will possibly do. So if I say, man, you do that again, I'm going to string you up from the tree with the whatever, right? You're giving all this graphic detail, but you ain't going to do none of that. Why say it? Because then when they do it, you're not going to do it. So now you don't trust yourself anymore. Yes, you may have gave them a pass. Yes, you may have forgiven them. Yes, you may have done something different about the situation. But the point is still, you can't trust yourself because you said you do it and you didn't do it. Right? And that falls right into stop lying to yourself about you're going to do something. Right? Stop lying to yourself, about what you are doing. Say it that way. So like, if I say I'm going to be, working on whatever, I'm going to be streaming live at this time, or I'm going to be doing whatever. And then I say, oh yeah, well I was, but I did this, and I was going to like, no, you didn't. Point blank period. You didn't do it. Right? But you're trying to tell yourself you did. No, don't, because you're lying to yourself. So if you're lying to yourself, how are you going to have self-trust? You can't trust yourself. You lied to yourself. Who lies to themselves? Right? So the other part of it is, I feel like in self-trust, how you trust yourself is if you can do the same thing in private, right? So if I'm saying that let's go back to the food thing. If I'm saying that I'm not gonna eat red meat, then I can't be like, oh, well, this is my cheat day. Ain't nobody gonna see me. I'm just gonna hop over to this Burger King, grab me a, double Whopper with it. You know what I'm saying? No, even though nobody's around, because I said I'm gonna not do this, I'm not gonna do it. Or even though I said I'm gonna do this, nobody else is around. Nobody would know if I'm streaming or not, except for y'all that come onto the stream. But I'm saying like my family would know. Even if I told them I was gonna be streaming, they wouldn't know unless they follow me, right? They wouldn't know if I was streaming or not when I said I would. If I said I was gonna go, for a walk down the street and I just went around the corner, sat on the curb, and nobody would be able to see me, they wouldn't know if I went walking or not. I could be out there eating some more red meat and then come on back to the house, acting like I'm tired. Right? I gotta do what I say I'm gonna do, even in private. If I say I'm gonna do it in private, I'm gonna do it. If I say I'm not gonna do it in private, I'm not gonna do it. Right? That's why I said you gotta watch your words. Watch what you're committing to. Right? And the only way that you're gonna start trusting yourself again is if you keep doing it repetitively. It can't be just one and now you trust yourself. It's consistency. You have to keep doing it. It's self-trust. For you to trust yourself, you have to keep doing that thing that causes the evidence of you to believe that this is what I'm gonna do. That's how I can say I'm a person of my word. Because I don't know when the last time that I said I was gonna do something and I didn't do it. Now, there's been times that I didn't make the deadline, right? Because of whatever issue. I didn't make the deadline, meaning I didn't hit the date that I was going for. But things happen. But it wasn't that I didn't get it done. I got it done. It just didn't hit the deadline. Which means I can still trust myself, right? Because I knew I was already working on a thing. It was not like I stopped working on a thing. I communicated to the party that I needed to communicate to the fact that I didn't meet that we didn't hit the deadline. They knew it well before the deadline, right? Because I communicated when I had challenges. That's what allows you to become the best version of yourself, right? So if I can leave you some words of wisdom before we get up out of here, here's some things that I'm thinking about, right? And I wrote these down because I thought they were really cool. Okay, here's some good things. One of them is, do not promise big, promise true. Okay, start making promises small enough to keep. Right? So remember those two things right there. Do not promise big, promise true. Start making promises small enough to keep. Those two things alone are going to get you back to a point of where you can trust yourself. Right? So going forward, if you say you're going to wake up early, wake up early. If you say you're going to stop texting that person, stop texting them. Right? If you say you want peace, be a person about peace. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that you can do it. Right? If you're going to say you're a person that you're about business, I'm about my BI. Right? You saying that you're about business, but you never do the work that's priority? Are you? do the priority work. If you say you're about business, do the priority work. Do the things that show up, that show that you're a business. Right? Operate like that. Right? Because more than anything, your future doesn't necessarily, yes, you can speak things into existence. I truly believe that. But it doesn't listen to what you say you want. It listens to what you put action behind. Right? And you can see that if you believe in the Bible. Here's what it says. It says faith without works is dead. You got to put works behind it. You got to put works behind the thing that you're saying. You have to put works behind the things that you believe. You got to put work behind the things that matter to you. Right? Because the goal that we're getting at here is not about perfection. Showing up the best version of yourself is not about showing up as a perfect person. That's never going to be. Right? It's not about showing up as the perfect person. The goal is to become someone who your own soul can rely on. That's the goal. It's not about perfection. It's about you being able to rely on you. Remember when we talked about the definition? A person on whom one relies. You're trying to rely on yourself. So it's about becoming someone that you can rely on. Your soul in the inside can rely on. You have to be that person. Okay? So, trust yourself by becoming trustworthy. Right? Your life changes when you know your own word means something. Right? If you keep your word to yourself, then you'll start believing you again. I say that this is simple because I believe it to be. These are some of the things that I had to put in place in my life to try to get myself back to a place of being able to trust myself. And it's working. It's working because I do trust myself. I am a person of my word. And I have been for many years at this point. Many, many years. So I'm just trying to help you to get to that place again. I know this video is longer than my normal ones. This is way longer. But this was a lot. I had to go through so much for you to try to figure out how to break this down in a way that we can get it, that we can all understand it and figure out ways to implement something new in our life, because we have to be able to implement it if it's going to be of value to us, right? You can't implement something that's no value to you. You don't want to. And so you being able to trust yourself is of so much value. And I hope I made that clear, because that will add money in your pocket. It'll add connections around you. It'll increase your sphere of influence. It'll make you show up as a better person. It'll make you be able to be a person of your word. And it'll make you be able to stand up even when it gets hard. Even when the situation is tough, you'd be able to still stand on what you said that you was going to do. Because you trust yourself. And you know you will. In some ways, that can make you a hero to a lot of people. So, why? Because they can rely on you. And in this world, there's a lot of people that people cannot rely on. So if you can become someone that people can rely on, you win. It ain't even a race, but you win. Trust me. So continue to show up, continue to be the best version of yourself. You know who it is, you know what it is. Rich Bees, aka the Real Rich Bees. That's my channel. This is what we talk about. Ways that we can become the better version of ourselves. We do it together. Why? Because it's better together than going it alone. Sometimes you got to go it alone, which is what we do when we step off this. But when we get on here, we can work together, figure out how to become the better version of ourselves, and then show up like that in each and every conversation, each and every situation that we may find ourselves in. But you know what? We will not find ourselves in situations because we will create the situation. That's why you have to have self-trust. That's why we talked about it today. So make sure you come back next time. We're going to be talking about some other stuff. We're going to be trying to push the envelope on the next part of the next aspect of ourselves, so we can show up and continue to show up and continue to be better, do better, see better in and around us at all times. Thank y'all for joining me today. We got 41 followers. Make sure we get that number up. Run that number up. Tell other people to come on next time. I'll be back on tomorrow. You know how we do. And make sure that you know we have 3 subscribers, y'all. We definitely blowing up. Make sure that you subscribe too. You can subscribe for free using Amazon Prime. You can subscribe for free. So if you have that, why not give your boy a subscription? All the work that I do to try to pull this content together to get y'all to this point. Come on, man. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one. Rich Bees.